What's up everybody, Brian here with BPS Customs. All these parts laid out in front of me can only mean one thing. I've run out of room in my office. I guess we should probably build a computer so my wife doesn't see this. This month's budget is $1,300. Now, while I think $1,000 is likely a more popular price target for builders, both because it's a more achievable goal and because it's a nice round number, when I ran a poll on Twitter after my first video asking what you guys wanted to see next, $1,300 was a close runner-up to the actual winner, which was the $800 build you guys saw last month and you could find right here. $1,300 gives us a large amount of wiggle room in the budget. So I figured I'd splurge on a few parts here and there to achieve a really bold aesthetic combination as well as a benchmark destroying monster. Now we're going to start with the inspiration for this build, the case. This is the Silent Base 600 in Special Edition Green that Be Quiet was awesome enough to send over to me for a review. Now I took a closer look at this case in this video over here and I came away very impressed. I knew I wanted to build a full system in it at some point, and this seemed like the perfect project and price range to do so. The shade of green used for the trim accents and cable grommets is what's known around these parts as NVIDIA green. In fact, CableMod has an option in the configurator on their website for this exact color, so I was able to configure the exact cable extensions I wanted to match the build on their website. Now, CableMod was gracious enough to offer these cables to me for this build, and I want to give them a big thank you for that. Their configurator can be used to make any color combination of extensions or full cable sets for power supplies from EVGA, Corsair, and others. Speaking of Corsair, we're going to use a couple of their parts in this build as well, and that's with good reason. Their RMX series of power supplies are fully modular with an 80 plus gold efficiency rating. The 650 watt model is only about $100 and will be more than enough power for our system as configured. It will also likely be able to support an additional graphics card if we decide to dive into SLI in the future, given Pascal's relatively low power consumption. Now, yes, certainly less expensive power supplies will also work here. Like I said earlier, expanding the budget gives you the luxury to splurge on some items, and I feel that the thing regulating power delivery to all of your super expensive and super delicate components is not a bad thing to splurge on. Now, Corsair also sent over their H110i V2 CPU cooler at my request, as I've used this cooler in the past and been extremely impressed by it. The solid construction gives you the confidence that the unit isn't going to likely spring a leak anytime soon. The 240mm radiator will cool even the hottest chip, and the water block comes with RGB LEDs. LEDs. Now, the chip that we're going to be cooling under here is the i5 6600K from Intel. Now, I also used a 6600K in my $1,000 build, and some consideration was given to stepping up to an i7 here. By cutting costs on some other parts, we could certainly have squeezed a 6700K into this build, so please, everybody out there whose head is about to explode, please calm down. I specifically chose to use the 6600K here in order to allow us to afford things like a nice liquid cooler and to max out the overclock. We hit 4.4 gigahertz on the 120mm cooler last time. The target for this build is 4.6 gigahertz, and I hope we get there. The 6600K will be nestled in the LGA 1151 socket of the MSI Z170A SLI Plus motherboard. This is a super stealthy mid-range Z170 board that will give us some nice overclocking ability, the connectivity that we need, and the completely black PCB and component set that we want. I didn't even know this board existed until I went shopping for this build, and as soon as I got it in the office, I was blown away by its simplicity and full feature set. Now, for memory, we're going with this badass looking 16GB kit of Patriot memory DDR4. Patriot is a company that not a lot of people consider when choosing memory because honestly they're not all that well known yet, but they make some of the best in the business. Their Viper Extreme memory is some of the fastest around with the lowest latency, but very much out of the price range for this build. This is the next tier down, the Viper Elite, and we have a 2x8GB kit for dual channel goodness. Now, our graphics horsepower will be provided by the EVGA GTX 1070 Superclocked. The SC model of the 1070 is about $40 cheaper than the Founders Edition and runs at a higher clock speed out of the box. It also achieves a nice overclock offset with minimal changes to the voltage. It runs cool, it runs quiet, and it looks great with the white LEDs. Now, with all the recent work I've done with AMD's Polaris graphics cards, I honestly forgot just how beastly the 1070 is. A couple of days ago, I was actually running this card through a series of tests as I actually got it secondhand and wanted to make sure it was still full of oomph. Oh boy, is it ever. I can't wait to see what it'll do in our system. Now, rounding out the build, we have 2 storage drives. The OS will be loaded onto the 480GB model of the OCZ Tryon 150. I was able to snag this from Newegg the other day on a shell shocker deal for only $89, but the retail price is about $120, and that's what we're going to use for our calculations here. It's super fast and relatively cheap, and I've had good experiences with this drive in the past. We'll also be popping in 1TB of mass storage in the form of a Western Digital Blue drive. Total pricing on this build at the time of filming came out to $1,303, right at our target. So now that I've talked for entirely too long, let's build this puppy.
Build complete. And holy hell, look at those numbers. This system is a monster gaming machine. I ran my benchmarks at 1080p because I wanted to keep everything on equal footing and be able to compare my results across systems I've built in this video series. But honestly, this is a 1440p system with no compromises. It absolutely destroyed all of the synthetic benchmark tests, and as we were actually able to achieve the mythical 4.6 GHz with the CPU, our numbers were higher across the board in every category. All this while staying around 42 degrees C at 100% load due to the efficiency of the H100i. Our GPU overclock also went well, where we were able to achieve a stable offset of 140 MHz on the core and 175 on the memory. Now, higher memory overclocks did unfortunately result in heavy artifacting, and I don't consider that a valid test result even if the system does manage to complete the benchmark. We get all that in a build that looks fantastic and runs super silent and really cool. So I guess that's a wrap on episode 3 of the best PC you could build. Get subscribed to the channel by tickling this little red button over here. Also, if you happen to see a little thumbs up emoji below this video to the right, be sure to click on it to make it fulfill its lifelong dream of becoming dark blue. Leave some comments down below letting me know what you thought of this build. Do you guys dig the green? What about my cool new Lazy Susan that spins the case around? Eh? As always guys, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.